The MC is hurled into a world where women hold power and control everything, while men are weak and submissive. In this place, girls openly claim what they desire and pursue men without hesitation, refusing to accept rejection. Zhang Hao struggles to stand his ground, but that becomes difficult when his stepsister is stunning, openly attracted to him, and things grow even more complicated once he enters school, where every classmate seems obsessed with him. It feels as though they all want the same thing from him, yet he is determined to protect it. One might think work would be different, but it is not, because his female boss acts no differently from the rest. They all desire him because he is unlike other men. He is the most masculine man in this female-dominated world, the goddess who pulled the MC into this situation gives him only one condition: to return to Earth, he must become a truly masculine man in this extreme feminist world. Sounds easy at first, but in this place, masculinity has nearly disappeared. His mission is to reshape this broken world and remind everyone how a real man should act. Before this, the MC had been nothing more than an office worker everyone pushed around. One night after work, he looks up and notices a blood moon hanging in the sky. Then everything suddenly fades to black. When he wakes, he finds himself in an unfamiliar place, and worse, he has become a handsome young man dressed in pink pajamas. As he tries to understand who he is and what happened, the door suddenly flies open, and a man who appears to be his father rushes in, urging him to hurry. They are supposed to go shopping with a friend named Elong. The name immediately strikes him. Elong had once been a huge tattooed mountain of muscle. In panic, the MC tears off the pajamas and runs out, not wanting to make that man wait. But when he approaches Elong, he freezes in shock because the person before him barely seems masculine anymore and looks even girlier than Hao himself. When his father sees them together, he immediately praises Elong, treating him as the perfect example of how a proper man should look. That is when Zhang Hao searches online and begins to understand the truth. History in this world is dominated by female conquerors, while men are reduced to household roles. Here, a man's body is weaker than a woman's, and his stamina is poor. Men are expected to raise children, while women handle all physical labor. For some reason, society's preference for women has caused a huge gender imbalance, and men are treated like fragile children. When they grow up, they take on hobbies once associated with women, such as makeup, while also having to protect themselves from thugs with dirty intentions. Zhang Hao has been in this world for only a few hours, yet he has already reached his limit. He brings Elong with him and declares that they are going to reclaim their manliness. Elong thinks his best friend has gone crazy, but still follows him. When they reach a tattoo parlor, they discover that only girls are inside, and every one of them judges the pair for putting tattoos on their delicate male bodies. Zhang Hao finally loses patience. He tries to take a photo to prove that he is a real man, but the instant he reveals a strip of his body, all the girls nearby lose control and become excited. When he returns home, he realizes that even his house has not escaped this strange new torment. His sister, Zhang Qianqin, is stunning, and even he feels unsettled because he cannot understand how someone like her lives under the same roof. That is when he remembers that his father's new wife has an older daughter. He quickly clears his mind, assuming he must have forgotten, while Ji casually remarks that her brother is a little shy, though she keeps watching him in a way that makes him uncomfortable. When Zhang Hao gets back to his room, he understands how draining the day has been. He was dressed in fine clothes, forced to wear makeup, bothered by thugs, and on top of everything, both his father and Elong have turned into weak, feminine men. He starts raging, but before he can settle down, his stepsister suddenly bursts in. She pushes him onto his back to make him calm down, then pulls him into a tight hug. Pressed against her chest, Zhang Hao realizes that even if this world is completely reversed, it may still have certain advantages. That night, Zhang Hao sleeps like a delicate beauty, until he hears someone softly calling his name. When he opens his eyes, he sees a girl standing in his room, and immediately starts screaming. The girl calmly tells him to remember her, because she is the one who brought him to this world. At that moment, Zhang Hao suddenly understands that she is the blood moon that called his name on that night. He immediately leans close to her face and demands to know why she brought him into this world. The girl says she is the blood moon goddess and explains that she only acted on his own wish. He once complained that he wanted to stop being a virgin but could not, so she sent him to a place where that problem would no longer exist. She also notes that many girls in this world already seem interested in him. Zhang Hao starts to panic, but the blood moon goddess keeps explaining. She tells him he can return to his original world only after completing a task. In his former life, he always claimed to be a real man. However, he only judged beauty from the outside and never improved himself. A true man should earn that title through effort. After all, it is not impossible for a man to open a tap with his bare hands. So, in this world ruled by powerful women, he must genuinely become a real man. Only then will he find find a way back. If he fails, he will have to learn how to survive in this world. Zheng Hao refuses to accept that idea, but before he can object, the moon goddess vanishes, leaving him alone with even more doubts. He starts wondering what becoming a real man actually means and what he is supposed to do. The next morning, he wakes up and first assumes everything was just a bizarre dream, but when he notices her scarf in his room, he understands that the mission is real and must be completed. He begins thinking about what a real man could mean in a female-dominated world, but he has no clear answer. The only thing he knows for certain is that he himself is somewhat weak and unmanly. Whatever the mission requires, he decides he must first learn more about this new world so he can face its challenges properly. Later, he opens a biology book to understand how intimacy works in this society. He discovers that women here are so powerful and dominant that men are forced into submissive roles under their control. Zheng Hao strongly dislikes that structure. He wants to return to his own world, where everything feels normal to him. At the same time, he wants to investigate the strange astronomical event from that night. There is a chance it was some kind of magnetic anomaly, but for that, he knows he can only rely on himself. He will need serious research, and perhaps he could even hire a freelancer to help him. The problem is that he is only a penniless high school student, so he has no money to pay any expert. For now, his only option is to find a way to earn money first. When he leaves his room, he sees his attractive stepsister standing in the kitchen, and for a moment, he simply takes in the sight before him. As Zheng Hao gets ready, he notices that his face is actually quite handsome. Although his features look somewhat feminine, he still feels satisfied with his appearance. This is his first day going to school since arriving in this strange world. As he steps outside, he sees his father being openly touched by his stepmother, while his stepsister Qin waits for him by the door. Whatever respect Zheng Hao still had for his father vanishes at once, so he quickly leaves the house, unwilling to stay there any longer. However, his plan to abandon the weak, feminine lifestyle immediately runs into trouble, because as soon as he meets his best friend Yilong, he sees that Yilong is still as girly as ever. Yilong is excitedly talking about his new lipstick, which is apparently the latest trend of the year. Zheng Hao tells him to show at least a little dignity, and only then realizes that his words have hurt Yilong's feelings. Zheng Hao quickly tells him not to take it personally, explaining that he simply wants to become a real man. Yilong cannot understand what Zheng Hao means, but before he can ask further, he notices something and warns Zheng Hao that they should leave quickly, because some perverts are watching them. And sure enough, a fat girl is hiding behind the pillars, staring at the boys with wide eyes. To Zheng Hao, the whole situation seems ridiculous, and he thinks Yilong is overreacting. He insists there is nothing to fear, since they are grown men and should not be scared of a girl hiding behind pillars. But Yilong disagrees and says they should not risk it. He grabs Zheng Hao's arm and tries to pull him away. Before Zheng Hao can object, the pervert moves closer, and Yilong instantly runs off. He dashes away so quickly that Zheng Hao barely has time to breathe, and soon the two of them are already far from the spot, trying to settle down. Yilong panics over the possibility of ruining his makeup, while Zheng Hao is thinking about something entirely different. He studies at Elliston Business School, where all the girls around him handle physical activities like sports. For a moment, he assumes his family must be wealthy, since the school is obviously expensive and filled with rich students. Zheng Hao starts watching how his classmates interact and quickly sees how abnormal this world is. Men here are so weak that they cannot even open their own water bottles. They depend on girls to do it for them, and the girls handle it easily. Zheng Hao refuses to accept that reality, so he steps forward confidently and says that he can open the bottle himself. He takes it in his hand, determined to prove his strength, but no matter how hard he twists and turns it, the cap will not move. In the end, with his pride wounded, he returns the bottle to the girl and admits defeat. The embarrassment hurts, but the situation only gets worse. Once the girls notice his struggle, more of them gather around him. They begin teasing him, asking him to open their bottles as well, offering him a chance to talk with them in return. Zheng Hao feels trapped. Annoyed and overwhelmed, he drops to the ground while the girls keep closing in. Yilong quickly rushes over, waves them away, and explains that Zheng Hao is unwell and needs space. The crowd finally starts backing off, but Zheng Hao barely hears any of it. His thoughts are somewhere else. He is only thinking about how much progress he has made toward becoming a real man, and the answer feels painfully obvious. None. Zheng Hao needs time alone, so he heads to the bathroom by himself. However, Yilong calls after him and asks to come along. Zheng Hao walks away in irritation, believing he does not need someone guarding him just to use the bathroom. But in the end, Yilong turns out to be right. When Zheng Hao enters the bathroom, a group of girls follows him inside and starts bothering him. They surround him and loudly comment on his appearance. Zheng Hao feels cornered, and each word makes him more uncomfortable. He tells himself he cannot keep enduring this. If things stay the same, completing the mission will be impossible. He knows he looks cute, but he is also far too weak to secure any place in this world. Zhang Hao decides he needs somewhere new to train, so he searches for kung fu classes. He believes building muscle is the right first step and feels motivated. He moves with focus until he suddenly senses a girl sneaking up behind him. Turns out to be Yuan, the classmate who always sits beside him, and Zhang Hao immediately becomes startled. He tells her not to approach people so quietly, but she laughs and says he was so absorbed in his lesson that he failed to notice her. Yuan then tilts her head and asks whether he is messaging a girl he likes. Before he can answer, she moves far too close to his face, and Zhang Hao begins to blush from embarrassment. He quickly asks her to give him some space, but Yuan takes his hand instead. She comments that his hands are soft, smooth, and pale, which makes Zhang Hao panic even more. In this world, women are always direct and think nothing of touching a man's hand. Zhang Hao pulls away and tells her to show some manners. His response hurts Yuan, and she looks at him sadly. She says he seems different from before, though in Zhang Hao's mind, he knows he has always been the same. When Yuan tries to shift the atmosphere and offers to massage him if he is tired, Zhang Hao panics and tries to push her off, but then he realizes how strong she truly is. He lacks the physical power to resist her, which only makes him feel more helpless. He struggles until, by pure luck, the classroom door opens. The English teacher, Mrs. Ma, enters and tells everyone to return to their seats. Zhang Hao feels relieved, sits down, and opens the book. The text surprises him because he understands everything clearly. He has not attended school in years, and before coming to this world, English had always been his worst subject, yet here the material feels easy. For the first time since arriving, Zhang Hao feels that this feminist world has given him one advantage. Here, he is intelligent. Filled with sudden confidence, Zhang Hao raises his hand high and asks the professor to choose him. He wants the class to witness his knowledge and prove he is not useless. But when his turn finally comes, his face turns pale. The words will not come out. Even the professor stops and says he looks unwell and may need to visit the nurse. Zhang Hao looks around and realizes the entire class is watching him. Every gaze is fixed on him and his chest tightens. The girls start whispering among themselves, saying that he is behaving very differently. The more they speak, the more ashamed he becomes. He lowers his head and wishes the ground would swallow him, or that he could simply wake up back in his own home. Later that day, Zhang Hao and Ilong walk together when Ilong notices how exhausted Zhang Hao looks. Zhang Hao says he did not sleep well, though in truth he is worn out by everything, especially by the women constantly surrounding him. They keep asking whether he did something to them, and sometimes he even gets touched in the hallway. On top of that, the less attractive outcast boys try to accuse Zhang Hao of bullying, even though he has done nothing. To Zhang Hao, school feels unbearably stressful, and he secretly wants to stay at home. While he is walking, a girl suddenly blocks his path and says she has something to confess. She gives him a present and admits that she has liked him for some time and wants to date him. Zhang Hao is stunned by how aggressive the women in this world are, acting like boys and confessing first. He refuses her politely, though even Ilong cannot understand how Zhang Hao can reject such a tempting offer. Later, as they think about food, Zhang Hao notices something strange. Every other boy eats very little. Ilong tells him that boys have always been this way, then orders cucumbers without rice, explaining that he is dieting. Zhang Hao cannot understand how men can survive on such tiny portions. Since he wants to build muscle and become stronger, he decides to order a large meal. When he confidently asks the cafeteria auntie for the biggest plate of pork and rice, Ilong panics and warns that he will gain weight. But Zhang Hao treats it as another step towards strength. Nearby boys whisper that Zhang Hao will soon become fat and ugly, while several bullies watch from afar, waiting to mock him. Zhang Hao eats without restraint, more like an ordinary boy, while Ilong watches in disbelief and wonders what has happened to his best friend. At that moment, Lu Feng, a third-year student from class 5, approaches Zhang Hao. At first, Zhang Hao does not recognize him, but Feng reminds him that they are classmates. He asks why Zhang Hao suddenly looks so bulky and tries to present himself as someone on the same popular level. Feng boasts that he is the biggest charmer around, then sneers that Zhang Hao looks greasy. Zhang Hao is already tired of listening, so he snaps back and tells Feng to check his own eyes, because he looks perfectly normal. He adds another sharp insult, which makes Feng start shedding fake tears, and the girls quickly gather around to comfort him, scolding Zhang Hao for being cruel to poor Feng. Feng smiles through his false crying, satisfied that the girls have taken his side. But then a bold girl steps forward and declares that Feng should leave her precious Zhang Hao alone. She says Zhang Hao can eat whatever he wants, and no one has the right to control his habits. Zhang Hao feels as if another striking girl has entered his life and stirred up trouble. Feng still refuses to back down, so Zhang Hao finally meets his eyes and speaks in a cold, commanding voice. He says the master is eating and tells Feng to leave. The words hit the table like thunder, thunder, and Ilong almost falls from his seat in shock, unable to believe his best friend is speaking so harshly to another boy. Meanwhile, the new purple-haired girl looks at Zhang Hao with admiration, thinking he has become even more impressive. Feng, however, storms away with his group of unpleasant girls following behind him. His followers hurry to comfort him, telling him not to feel jealous or upset. They remind him that he is still more popular than Zhang Hao, and that everyone thinks Zhang Hao will get fat soon anyway. Meanwhile, Zhang Hao turns his attention to the purple-haired girl. She seems friendly, but he has no idea who she is, so he asks Ilong. Ilong explains that her name is Zhou Ling. She is the senior captain of the college basketball team and even sits beside him in class. This makes Zhang Hao realize something strange. Every seat near him seems to be occupied by powerful girls. Zhou Ling leans toward Ilong and asks whether he has tried the Heroes vs. League game she gave him earlier. Ilong admits that it is too difficult for him and that he still cannot play well. Zhang Hao immediately cuts in, surprising everyone, and says it is the 5 vs. 5 tower demolition game. Ilong nearly drops his chopsticks, unable to believe his best friend actually played it, since last time Zhang Hao claimed he had no interest in those so-called girl games. Zhang Hao pauses and thinks that in this reversed world, a league-style game would naturally exist and would obviously be popular among girls. Zhou Ling urges him to try it seriously, even though no men compete at the highest level. Zhang Hao finishes eating, gets up, and casually says he has already tried it and finds it playable, but now he wants to return to class. Then he leaves without even thanking Zhou Ling. To smooth over his rude behavior, Ilong quickly fills the silence, while Zhou Ling quietly wonders when this attractive boy will finally accept her feelings. Later in class, Zhang Hao sits in silence and begins sorting everything out in his mind. If Hero X League has no high-ranking male players, then the true legends from his world, men like Dasher and Uzi, must not exist here as competitors. That idea gives him a new plan. He decides he needs to make time to meet them personally, and as the thought grows, a heavier question begins pressing on him. What does it really mean to be a real man in this strange inverted world? Zhang Hao's gaze drifts toward a lonely girl by the window, quietly keeping to herself. When Ilong finally looks up from his phone, he tells Zhang Hao that she is Min Yuehua, a new transfer student. Zhang Hao immediately asks whether Ilong likes her, and from how quickly Ilong becomes defensive, Zhang Hao feels sure he is right. Ilong stammers that Yuehua rarely talks, then admits she is cute and that he already knows a lot about her. For Zhang Hao, that is enough proof. He is convinced Ilong is in love. With that in mind, Zhang Hao suddenly stands and declares that Ilong should go speak with her. He walks toward Yuehua's desk with confidence, saying Ilong needs to make his move. Ilong tries to stop him, but it is already too late. Zhang Hao is already standing before Yuehua, smiling as he introduces himself. Yuehua quietly says she has only recently transferred here, and Zhang Hao quickly notices that she feels different. Unlike the other girls in this world who openly chase him, Yuehua seems reserved and lost in her own thoughts. Zhang Hao introduces Ilong, but Ilong nervously says Yuehua probably does not want to talk. He trips over his words and tells Zhang Hao they should leave. Zhang Hao refuses to give up and asks whether Yuehua is reading an English book, or if she simply does not want to speak with them. Yuehua lowers her gaze and answers honestly, saying she just does not know what to say. Zhang Hao immediately understands that she is not ignoring them. She is only extremely shy, so Zhang Hao does the most natural thing for him. He holds out his hand and says they should become friends, hoping she will feel comfortable enough to talk whenever she wants. The moment seems minor, but for Zhang Hao it feels like a victory. He thinks that a real man should never ignore a girl who seems forced to face everything by herself. Just then, Yuan rushes in with her usual loud voice and asks what Zhang Hao is doing with the new transfer student. Zhang Hao nearly sighs. Yuan talks too much, but that suddenly gives him an idea. He smiles and says she should become friends with Yuehua, using her energy and social skills to help Yuehua feel comfortable. Without hesitation, he brings them closer and asks her to help him. Yuan happily agrees. As Zhang Hao returns to his seat, Yuehua looks up at him and silently thanks him with a quiet, meaningful expression. Zhang Hao walks away satisfied, and for the first time, he admits something to himself. Perhaps he is already halfway closer to becoming a real man and escaping this world. Later, Zhang Hao sits in his room listening to heavy metal. He tells himself that a real man should always stay loyal to rock and roll. Suddenly, his sister Qin enters and asks what he is doing. Zhang Hao almost jumps from his seat because her revealing outfit catches him completely off guard. He quickly answers that he is just listening to music. Qin moves closer with a calm, deliberate pace and says she wants to listen too. Zhang Hao cannot deny that having such a goddess-like sister has certain benefits, and deep down he enjoys all of them. Qin sits right beside him, close enough that their bodies almost touch. She takes one earbud and teases him, saying he must truly like rock and roll and that he is different from other boys. Zhang Hao likes those words more than he wants to admit. Then Qin says something else. She tells him he is very attractive. Zhang Hao freezes. He has no idea how to answer and wonders if something is wrong with his new stepsister. At the same time, he convinces himself that this must be a test of his masculinity. In his mind, an angel warns him that a real man must resist temptation or fall into sin. Then a devil argues back that a real man should act when the moment demands it, especially when a lady is the one approaching him. The conflict keeps tearing at him, until Zhang Hao finally pushes Qin away. But as he does, he loses balance and falls directly on top of her. For a brief moment, they are face to face. They are so close that Zhang Hao wonders whether this is what being a real man feels like. His self-control begins to slip. The temptation feels overwhelming, and he is close to giving in. Then something suddenly happens. A sudden flash fills his mind, showing a girl from another place telling him that he belongs to her and that he is not going anywhere. Zhang Hao suddenly sits up in confusion and pulls himself away from Qin. His face turns pale, and Qin notices it at once. She asks whether he feels unwell or might be anemic. Zhang Hao forces a faint smile and lies that he only needs rest. Deep down, he knows he barely managed to hold himself back. Without hesitation, Qin embraces him and gently presses his head against her chest, telling him to look after himself for his sister's sake. Zhang Hao admits to himself that Qin is kind, though he also wonders whether that kindness hides something more complicated. Trying to shift the topic, Zhang Hao suddenly says he wants to cut his hair shorter and asks for her opinion. Qin smiles and answers honestly. She says she will care for him no matter what and that he should choose whatever makes him happy. Her words linger in his mind. Zhang Hao once again realizes how unusual this closeness with his sister feels, but he pushes the thought away. What matters now is tomorrow. Tomorrow he will cut his hair. Tomorrow he will change his look, because tomorrow will mark the start of a new era. Zhang Hao enters the salon, where a woman greets him with a cheerful smile. She asks whether he has come to discover his inner beauty. Zhang Hao shakes his head and says he has no interest in that sort of thing. The hairdresser tilts her head and asks what style he wants. Zhang Hao replies that he only wants a haircut that feels comfortable. His answer surprises her. She has never heard such a request before. In her mind, she decides that boys nowadays rarely say what they truly want. If he asks for something plain, he must secretly want something amazing. With that assumption, she begins working. Her scissors move quickly, and after some time she finishes with a satisfied smile. Zhang Hao looks into the mirror and can hardly believe the result. The haircut is neat, sharp, and brings out his face better than he expected. He admits to himself that it is the best haircut he has ever had. The hairdresser watches him and starts to blush. She says she does not even want him to pay and instead suggests that he become a model for her salon. Zhang Hao feels uncomfortable with the offer. He does not want to accept favor he has not earned. She keeps flirting with him, and before he leaves, she gives him her card, saying he can return whenever he wants. Zhang Hao steps outside in disbelief, thinking he must truly look handsome if he cannot even stop a woman from becoming interested in him. After returning home, he keeps checking himself in the mirror. He has to admit the haircut is perfect, and he feels like a different man in this world. He opens his wardrobe, searching for clothes that suit his new look, but what he finds makes him frown. Everything inside is bright, colorful, and covered with bows. None of it fits the image of a man who wants to carry himself with confidence. Zhang Hao shakes his head. If he is truly going to enter a new era, he knows what has to happen, and these clothes must disappear, and soon. Before long, Zhang Hao's father comes home with groceries, and his stepmother tells Zhang Hao to go help him. But the moment his father sees his precious son's new appearance, he loses control. He shouts at Zhang Hao, demanding to know why he cut his hair so short. He insists that men should never wear their hair like that. He wants to rush out and leave the hairdresser terrible reviews, complaining that no one will ever want to marry Zhang Hao now. Zhang Hao cannot believe he apparently needs his father's permission just to get a haircut. The scolding continues. His father even pulls off his shoe and starts hitting him. Zhang Hao runs around the room, yelling that this is domestic violence and that his father should never strike his handsome face. At that moment, Qin bursts in and asks what is happening. Zhang Hao trips and crashes into her chest. She catches him with a smile before turning to their father. In a calm voice, she tells him not to get so worked up, reminding him that his health will suffer if he keeps stressing over minor things. She studies Zhang Hao's haircut more carefully and feels slightly unsettled because it is extremely short. But to defend her little brother, she lies and says he looks good. She adds that he asked for her permission yesterday, so their father has no reason to be angry. Zhang Hao's father still cannot fully calm down. He storms away, muttering that he will make dinner, though it is obvious he is still furious. Zhang Hao thanks his sister for stepping in and saving him from his father's beating. Qin smiles and says plainly that she is his sister, so of course she will always protect him. Then she asks him to come to her room because she wants to show him something. Zhang Hao feels feels curious, thinking he is finally about to see an ordinary teenage girl's room filled with cute decorations. But the moment he steps inside, he freezes. Chin's room is not girly at all. It is cold, orderly, and almost as sterile as an operating room. Chin walks to her desk and picks up a small box, explaining that when they first moved in, she had no time to prepare a gift for him, but now she is ready to give it. She opens the box and reveals 2 diamond earrings. Zhang Hao stares at them in shock and says they must be far too expensive. Chin shakes her head and tells him she would do anything to make him happy. For the first time, Zhang Hao understands what it feels like to have a sister, and he tells himself that he truly likes this new life. But once he returns to his room, his thoughts begin to shift. He wonders how much those diamonds cost. If she gave him something so valuable, then he needs to repay her with a gift of his own. However, after paying for his haircut, he has no money left. At that moment, his phone lights up with a message from Ilong. Ilong says he has just finished writing a new novel and wants Zhang Hao to read it. Zhang Hao suddenly gets an idea. If Ilong can write novels, then he can do the same. It may be a quick way to earn money. He decides to write stories about brave male heroes and powerful military queens. With that in mind, he sits down to work. Zhang Hao opens a blank page and types the title of his new book. He names it A Real Woman in a World of Men. Then he leans back in his chair with a confident smile, convinced it will become the next bestseller. The next day at school, Zhang Hao's phone suddenly vibrates. He checks it and sees a notification from the website where he uploaded his novel. To his surprise, it says his story has already passed the contract request stage, and now he needs to contact the editor himself. He realizes the review process is much faster than he expected. From now on, he can receive daily payments for every update. It feels like his plan is finally moving in the right direction, and he is close to making money. Zhang Hao decides this deserves a small celebration. He plans to buy himself some ice cream. The problem is that he only has $1 left. With that amount, he can only afford a popsicle. He heads toward the store, but the moment he sees it, he stops in place. The place feels familiar, and suddenly his memories come rushing back. In his previous life, this was the same store where he first met his sister Amy. Back then, Amy was in her final year of high school. She was small, but surprisingly strong. She was the daughter of Uncle Kim, who ran the shop right beside Zhang Hao's house. Because of that, their families had always been close. Amy was kind and lively. She often said she would treat Zhang Hao to lunch, and at the time, he thought that must be what first love felt like. Zhang Hao used to visit Amy after school whenever he could. Sometimes he only watched her from afar, unable to take his eyes off her. One day, he finally gathered the courage to confess his feelings. But Amy only laughed awkwardly and said she preferred boys her own age, not someone younger like him. That day, Zhang Hao was rejected. Even so, he refused to give up. He promised himself he would train hard, become stronger, and one day grow into a man capable of protecting Amy. That was the vow he made in his old life. But now everything has changed. In this world, he is admired not for strength, but for beauty. With that in mind, Zhang Hao decides that this time he will succeed. This time, he believes he can win Amy's heart. When Zhang Hao reaches the store, he hears shouting. Amy is arguing with her father, saying she only wants to save enough money to get married without working too hard. Her father tells her life is not that simple and reminds her that other daughters older than her still study and work harder. Zhang Hao hesitates, thinking it may be better to avoid the argument. But then Amy walks in. The moment he sees her face, his heart jolts. To him, she is still as beautiful as ever. For a brief moment, he almost forgets the quarrel he just heard. Then his gaze shifts to the rest of her body, and he freezes. Amy is far bigger than he remembers. The shock nearly makes him flee, but before he can turn around, Amy notices him. She looks directly at him and asks whether he did something strange to his hair. Zhang Hao drops to the ground in fear. His body trembles, tears spill out, and he begs her not to come any closer. Yet even while crying, her face still pulls him in. Her beauty tempts him, and the only thing he can say is a desperate plea for the beautiful Amy he remembers to come back. Sister Amy makes Zhang Hao sit in a chair like a captured hero. She brings him watermelon slices and says it has been a long time since he visited, telling him not to act shy. But Zhang Hao is shaking inside and fears for his life. He nervously says he does not need to eat and only wants to leave. Amy gets excited and starts bouncing him on the chair with such force that it breaks underneath him. She gasps and asks if he is okay, acting as though she was not the one who caused it. Zhang Hao quickly jumps out of her reach. He says he is fine, and that he has just remembered something important he needs to do. Without waiting another moment, he runs away. As Amy calls after him and asks for his number, Zhang Hao is already gone from the shop. Back home, he sits down and thinks. To him, it is a pity that someone as beautiful as Amy is built like King Kong. At the same time, he admits that he wants to become strong like that too. Only then can he be called a real man. Because of this, he tells himself he must start kung fu classes soon. The problem is that the last time he checked, fact, the classes were expensive. He also still needs to buy a gift for his sister Chen and fix the mess in his closet. His list of problems keeps growing while his pockets remain empty. He thinks that if he could win the lottery, all his troubles would disappear at once. As he thinks about it, someone interrupts him. Zhang Hao looks up and sees Chen at home. She is upside down against the wall, practicing yoga. The sight surprises him and makes him curious. He realizes that even the girls in this world do yoga. But Chen explains that she only started because the gym became boring. She wanted to try exercises usually done by men. Xiaohou knows Diaz and thinks it makes sense. In this reversed world, why would anything good stay normal? Qin Xian asks Zhang how to do yoga with her, saying his thin, weak body puts him at a disadvantage. She adds that every girl will end up bothering him. Zhang Hao freezes for a moment, suddenly realizing that he really is weak compared to his sister. His pride is hurt and his male ego refuses to stay silent. So he grabs her wrist and challenges her to arm wrestling, determined to prove her wrong. Qin laughs, amused by how strangely he is acting. Still, she accepts the challenge. They both agree that whoever loses must give the winner something. The match begins and Qin barely puts in any effort while Zhang Hao uses all the strength he has. He clenches his teeth and declares that this is more than arm wrestling. His dignity is at stake. In his mind, he thinks of men from another age who endured far harsher lives. They lived quietly, hiding parts of themselves, yet still held onto their pride as men until the end. But now he is here, being treated like a delicate girl who cannot do anything. His irritation grows when Qin teases him, saying he is doing pretty well for a little boy. Zhang Hao's arm starts to hurt, but he refuses to quit. His pride as a man forces him to keep struggling. Still, to put an end to his suffering, Qin finally uses her real strength and beats him instantly. She smiles gently and tells him he actually did very well. Zhang Hao sighs and once again accepts that he is weak in this world. He asks Qin what she wants from him now that he has lost. Qin presses his hand to her cheek and says she wants to know what it feels like to use someone's thigh as a pillow. Zhang Hao cannot even picture himself doing that. But when he sees her strong legs, shaped by yoga and training, he decides to go along with it. He sits down and says it is fine. But instead of him resting on her thighs, Qin places her head on his. Zhang Hao stares at her in disbelief because in his mind, that is supposed to be the girl's role, not his. Qin closes her eyes and says his legs are just as smooth as she expected. She asks if she can stay like that a little longer. Seeing how innocent she looks while asking, Zhang Hao nods and says she can stay as long as she wants. In the end, he is a man who keeps his word and does what is asked and expected of him. A few days later, Zhang Hao is deep in writing mode, wearing his glasses when his phone vibrates. He looks up, surprised that someone is messaging him on a weekend. It is Yuan inviting him to an amusement park because she is going with Yuehua. She has already asked his best friend Ilong to pick him up. Since it is less an invitation than a decision, Zhang Hao understands he has no choice but to get ready. At that moment, Zhang Hao hears Ilong's voice and he is already standing at the door with his little sister. Zhang Hao wanted a quiet day alone with his thoughts, but now he has to deal with company. When he steps out to greet them, the little girl suddenly leaps onto him. Zhang Hao is confused because he has never seen her before. He asks Ilong who she is and Ilong nearly breaks down, saying his best friend has forgotten his own sister. She is Ilong's 6-year-old sister, Li Ling. Ilong peels her off Zhang Hao like Velcro and explains that she only met him when she was 4, so it makes sense that Zhang Hao would not remember her now. What Ilong does not know is that Zhang Hao truly has no memory of her because, in his previous life, Ilong never had a sister. Zhang Hao asks him to wait in his room for a moment, but as he turns away, he suddenly feels someone pinch him. Without question, it is Li Ling. Zhang Hao has no real desire to go to the amusement park. To him, it sounds boring. Ilong insists he is wrong. He reminds him that Yuehua will be there and can help him relax. Besides, Zhang Hao has been working non-stop for days and needs a break. While the two boys argue, Li Ling wanders around the room, staring at everything with wide eyes. She has already developed a small crush on Zhang Hao. In the end, Zhang Hao stands up and says they will go to the haunted house. But before that, he needs to change. He remembers the promise he made to Yuehua that he would help her like a real man. And a man does not break his word. He puts on his most masculine outfit while Ilong urges him to hurry, not wanting Yuehua and Yuan to wait any longer. Soon, they arrive at the amusement park. Yuan looks at Li Ling and immediately asks whose child she is. Li Ling lies without hesitation, saying she came from Zhang Hao's house. Once again, Ilong pulls her back and explains that she is his sister, who begged to come along, and he only agreed so he could watch over her. Yuan compliments Zhang Hao's style and says he looks much better this way. Then she nudges Yuehua, waiting for her to say something. Zhang Hao laughs awkwardly, unsure what to expect. At last, Yuehua speaks and says he looks good and handsome. Zhang Hao smiles, gently pats her head, head and tells her she has a lovely voice, so she should speak more often. After that, Yuehua takes the lead and guides everyone toward the haunted house. The haunted house turns out to be genuinely frightening, and, as expected, Ilong clings to Zhang Hao, saying he is too scared and that they should go ride something for children instead. Zhang Hao cannot believe a man could be so scared of a haunted house. He tells Ilong it is nothing serious. Even Li Ling shakes her head, thinking her brother is a coward. Yuan then suggests that since there are too many of them, they should split into two groups. She quickly declares that she and Zhang Hao will be together, while the others form another team. Then she turns to Li Ling and tells her to protect the boys properly, because that is a woman's duty. Li Ling immediately throws a fit, insisting that she wants to stay with Zhang Hao. Zhang Hao steps in and firmly tells her to behave and go with her brother. He adds that she has no reason to worry about him because he will be fine. Yuan is disappointed because she wanted to be with Zhang Hao, but he outplays her. Judging by her behavior, being in her group would only make things harder for him. Compared to that, Li Ling is clearly the safer choice. Zhang Hao then sends Yuan's group ahead to check the route, saying he and Li Ling will follow a few minutes later. When Yuan is upset and somewhat frightened, but when Zhang Hao questions her, her pride as a woman takes over. She quickly says women cannot be afraid and that she will protect Ilong and his little sister. 10 minutes later, Zhang Hao and Li Ling finally decide to enter. Zhang Hao promises that he will protect her because she is his sunflower, and Li Ling can only agree quietly. As soon as they enter the haunted house, they hear everyone else screaming. Hearing all the noise inside, Zhang Hao realizes Yuan is not as brave as she pretends. He then turns to Yuehua and asks whether she is scared. The girl shyly nods, which feels strange in a world where girls are usually confident. Zhang Hao tells her there is nothing shameful about being afraid and says she can hug him if she gets scared, but that much closeness is too difficult for her, so she only stretches out her hand and lightly grabs his sleeve. Zhang Hao moves forward like a hero, ignoring every monster that tries to frighten them. The haunted house is larger than expected, and after walking for 10 minutes, Zhang Hao begins to feel that something is wrong. When he turns around, he notices that Yuehua is no longer behind him. Realizing she must have gotten lost, he quickly heads back to find her. After searching around, he finally discovers her hiding inside a cupboard. He asks why she is sitting there, and she admits that she got lost and hid in the dresser to keep herself safe. Zhang Hao cannot help laughing softly at how timid she is, calling her a little bird and telling her not to be scared because he has come to bring her out. Yuehua feels relieved. She realizes she can trust Zhang Hao because he is the first person who has treated her with real kindness. When they finally leave the haunted house, Ilong is trembling with fear and says he will never enter one again. Even his 6-year-old sister shakes her head and calls him embarrassing. When Zhang Hao and Yuehua return, Ilong breaks into tears of relief, grateful that everyone is safe. When Yuan then asks why the two of them stayed inside for so long and whether they had fun, Zhang Hao flicks her forehead to stop her teasing. As Yuehua walks toward them, Zhang Hao notices that something is wrong. She is sweating, breathing heavily, and before he can respond, she collapses into his arms. Only then does Zhang Hao realize that Yuehua has fainted. Ilong immediately panics as usual. He says they need to call the police, but cannot find his phone. Even Yuan loses her composure and quickly starts calling for an ambulance. Zhang Hao tells them not to worry and says he will handle it. He carefully lifts Yuehua, carries her to a nearby bench, and gently lays her down. Ilong nervously asks what they should do, saying she might need CPR. Then he realizes that would make Zhang Hao her first kiss. When Yuan dislikes the idea and quickly says she can just call 911 instead. Zhang Hao remains calm and tells them to get lunch and water. While he tries a simple way to wake her up, he places Yuhua's head on his lap and gently pinches her cheek. After a moment, Yuehua slowly opens her eyes and asks why he is tugging her ear. Zhang Hao laughs softly and explains that she fainted, so he was only testing whether a small trick would wake her. Yuehua quietly admits that she was frightened, but says she feels better now. Zhang Hao tells her not to force herself into haunted houses again if she feels uncomfortable. Yuehua knows Diaz, but then softly mutters that she only wants to sleep. Zhang Hao worries that she may faint again, but when he hears her snoring, he realizes she has simply fallen asleep. He looks down at her peaceful face and thinks she is the calmest and kindest girl he has met in this world, even with her strange habits. After a while, Yuehua finally wakes up. Everyone gathers around and asks how she feels, while Zhang Hao, more worried than the others, asks if something is troubling her. Yuan, who only wants to keep enjoying the amusement park, impatiently asks whether they are still going to continue. Zhang Hao shakes his head and says they have already had enough excitement for one day. He suggests they go home so Yuehua can rest, but when Zhang Hao stands up, Yuehua suddenly takes his hand and quietly says they can leave together. He pauses for a moment, then allows her to hold on. They begin walking hand in hand, and Yuehua, still shy, stays close to him in her own quiet quiet way. When Yuan watches with envy, silently crying inside because she also wants to know what it feels like to hold a man's smooth, delicate hand. It is something she has always dreamed of. As they walk Yuhua home, the route turns out to be longer than expected. Yuan and Yilong both remark that Yuhua seems to live very far away, perhaps even in a rural area, and wonder how inconvenient it must be for her to attend school every day. Zhang Hao frowns and tells them not to speak so condescendingly. When they finally arrive, Yuan's jaw nearly drops. Before them stands not a simple house, but a huge mansion. As they take in the sight, a butler quickly comes out, bows, and announces that the lady of the house has returned. He says the Lord specifically ordered her not to leave the estate and asks how she could go outside without permission. The rest of the group can only stand frozen, unable to believe that their quiet, shy friend has been living in a mansion all along. They sit inside the mansion, surrounded by walls and tables that look coated in gold. The same butler who scolded Yuhua moments earlier now serves them tea and coffee, and none of it is ordinary. Everything looks expensive, imported, and carefully prepared. The butler explains that the tea is made with Tianshan water, while the cakes were brought in by a special chef for the new guests. After serving them, he formally announces that Yuhua will go to her room to change, so her friends should excuse her. Yuhua says nothing in response. She does not defend herself or protest. She only nods and leaves quietly. Everyone else remains stunned, unable to believe their quiet, shy friend comes from such a powerful family. No one would have guessed that Yuhua is a millionaire. Zhang Hao, however, stays calm and tells them to relax. Still, he admits to himself that it feels strange to learn that the transfer student he casually helped is someone so important. Meanwhile, the butler continues scolding Yuhua. He says she acted improperly, left without permission, and did not even let her bodyguard follow her. He adds that her father was extremely worried and will not allow her to go out again. Yuhua suddenly stops and asks whether her father called and how her mother is doing. The butler replies that her father did call, but he did not answer any questions and still seems busy. Yuhua tightly grips her skirt and mutters that he is always too busy to answer her calls. The butler tries to defend him, saying the Lord has too much business to handle, but he has sent her a gift that is already on the way. It is a model of her favorite tank. Yuhua shows no excitement. She does not want gifts or expensive toys, but love and attention from her father. Even the butler, despite his formal manner, seems to feel sorry for her. A while later, Yilong looks toward the stairs and sees Yuhua coming out of her room in a beautiful dress. His eyes brighten because his crush looks even prettier at home. Even Zhang Hao notices the difference. He thinks she does look cute, but compared to when she was with them, she now seems like a lifeless doll. Zhang Hao asks if she is alright. Yuhua quietly says that her father still has not called her back. However, Zhang Hao does not know enough about her situation to understand what that truly means. She then asks him to come to her room because she wants to give him something. Zhang Hao feels confused, but follows her anyway. Once he steps inside, he is stunned. In a world where women usually act masculine, her room looks soft and feminine, even more than his sister's rooms. Curious, Zhang Hao asks whether her father said something upsetting or punished her for going out with them. In this world, fathers are treated like male mothers. Yet in this villa, Yuhua seems to live only with the nanny, servants, and housekeeper. Her father and mother are nowhere to be seen. She admits that her father used to treat her well, but now he is always busy. Zhang Hao then asks about her mother. Yuhua explains that her mother is even busier and that she has always been alone in this house. This shocks Zhang Hao as he realizes how lonely her life has been. Her mother is the mayor and never has time to return home, while her father constantly travels to earn money for the family. The housekeeper once told her that everyone loved her, but for Yuhua, those words now feel distant. She grew up without real affection or attention from her parents. Zhang Hao gently pats her head and tells her she can call him whenever she feels lonely. He reminds her that she can also contact Yuan and Yilong because they are all friends now. Yuhua smiles at his kindness, then takes his hand and leads him toward her closet. She insists that she has something to show him. When she opens the closet, it reveals a collection of guns and tanks. She picks up one gun and gives it to Zhang Hao, saying it is her most precious model, but from now on, it belongs to him. Zhang Hao refuses at once, saying his father would be furious if he ever brought a gun home. Yuhua still insists, explaining that it is the most valuable thing she owns, while even the butler reminds him that friends exchange gifts. She says she wants to be his lifelong friend. Zhang Hao understands what she is trying to say. He tells her that they do not need a gun to be real friends, because their bond is already genuine. Hearing this, Yuhua wraps her arms around him and hugs him tightly. She says they will stay together for the rest of their lives and never be apart. After spending the entire afternoon at Yuhua's house, everyone leaves, and Zhang Hao says they will see each other again at school soon. Yuhua looks forward to that moment, and as Zhang Hao and Yilong walk home, Yilong cannot stop talking about how luxurious Yuhua's house is. He keeps saying how beautiful she looked in her new dress and starts thinking about buying something new for himself, maybe something foreign. Zhang Hao says Yilong already has more than enough hair to style and should not waste any more money on it. Then Zhang Hao suddenly realizes that if his friend wants to shop for clothes, this is the perfect opportunity for him as well. He had wanted to get rid of his pink, bow-covered clothes for a long time, and now he finally has a chance to replace them. Excited, he says they will go shopping first thing tomorrow morning. At the shopping mall, Yilong asks what the special occasion is. Zhang Hao explains that he simply wants to improve his wardrobe. He has some spare money from his part-time work and wants to shop without rushing. Yilong switches into full shopping mode and helps Zhang Hao choose the best pieces he can find. Zhang Hao spends a large amount on his new clothes and thinks this must be how girls feel when they lose control during a shopping spree. After some time, Yilong gets hungry and suggests they should eat. They head to the nearest restaurant, and while ordering, Zhang Hao notices someone whispering about him and calling him handsome. He looks in their direction, and even Yilong seems confused, but Zhang Hao dismisses it, saying it is nothing serious and they should focus on eating. Still, he cannot shake the sense that someone is watching him. While he eats, a random girl secretly takes a photo of him. She excitedly tells her friend that she has found an extremely handsome man in the restaurant, someone she wants to marry and have children with. Then she uploads his picture online. A little later, Zhang Hao's instincts tell him to put on a cap. When Yilong asks why, Zhang Hao says he needs to stay low-key because of his appearance. Yilong does not envy his looks. Instead, he agrees that Zhang Hao should be careful, since the internet celebrity Zhongzhong always says people must stay alert because perverts are everywhere. Zhang Hao is right to stay cautious, because without him knowing, he is already going viral online. As the unmatched beauty from the restaurant, countless girls on the internet thirst over him, begging for his number so they can talk to him. Meanwhile, a brunette notices his picture. The moment she sees that Ling Ling uploaded it, she cries out in excitement because she knows the girl. That means she may have a chance to get closer to Zhang Hao. After returning home, Zhang Hao drops onto the sofa and says he is exhausted from shopping. Even so, he thinks it was worth it because he can finally throw away his awful old clothes. Suddenly, his phone rings, and it is his best friend calling again. Zhang Hao wonders why Yilong cannot leave him alone when they met not long ago. Once he answers, Yilong shouts that Zhang Hao has become famous and is trending online. Zhang Hao has no idea what he is talking about, so Yilong explains that the photo taken of him at the fast food restaurant has gone viral. He tells Zhang Hao to open Vblog because he is already in the top 5 searches. Meanwhile, his sister Ling Ling is furious because she thinks those pictures should have belonged only to her. Zhang Hao finally opens the app and sees that he is ranked 4th. He scrolls through countless comments where women call him gorgeous and irresistible. Some even say he should enter the entertainment industry because he is that handsome. The restaurant itself has also posted a comment saying it is honored that the most beautiful man in the world came there to eat. Zhang Hao is stunned. He can hardly believe what he is seeing. Still, he convinces himself that everyone is exaggerating and that the attention will disappear in a few days. He decides to calm down by watching a live game, but suggestive ads suddenly appear on his screen, and he quickly closes them. Fortunately, the gaming section looks more normal. His favorite game is still there, though the presenter is now a girl. He figures that does not matter as long as she knows how to play. Then an idea suddenly comes to him. Since he is already an adult, maybe he can start his own live stream. With his gaming skills, it should be easier than making money as a writer. Just as he thinks about it, his sister Qin enters. She says she spent the whole day at the research institute, yet even there she heard that her little brother had suddenly become an internet sensation. Zhang Hao feels embarrassed after realizing she knows about it too. Qin asks whether he went out with Yilong today. He thinks she might be upset, but admits that he did go with Yilong because they both wanted new clothes and decided to shop together. She steps far too close, pinning him in place, and her expression turns serious. She asks whether anyone caused him trouble. Zhang Hao hesitates, then finally says nothing like that happened, and if it ever does, he believes he can protect himself. Qin thinks Zhang Hao is far too innocent. She tells him that the women in this world are much more dangerous than he imagines. As she speaks, she gently touches him and reminds him that he is their father's only son. If anything happened to him, she would never be able to explain it to their parents. She warns him that if any strange woman bothers him again, he must tell her immediately. He should also inform her whenever he goes out and where he is going. Qin leans so close that Zhang Hao feels certain he would bump into her chest if he lowered his head. After a long silence, she finally steps away and turns to leave. Then she stops and says there is one more thing. Without asking, she takes his phone, and for some reason, Zhang Hao immediately feels nervous. The next day, a group of women gathers outside Zhang Hao's school. Hiding in the bushes, he listens as they discuss where he suddenly vanished. They say he must be nearby and that they need to find him because a man that beautiful is rare these days. Zhang Hao hears everything everything, and his tension begins to rise. He has no idea what is happening. He quickly pulls out his phone and calls Ilong for help. But before Zhang Hao can even speak, Ilong tells him to stay home and not come to school. Too many people have gathered there because of yesterday's news. Now that everyone knows Zhang Hao studies at this school, the crowd has come to surround him and get close to him. Zhang Hao can barely believe his luck anymore. He only wanted peace and a way out of this world, yet now it feels like everyone wants a piece of him. Ilong advises him to take the day off and avoid the chaos. Besides, many people at school already dislike him, and now all eyes are on him. Zhang Hao runs away from the area as fast as he can and informs his sister Chen Chun. He asks her to get their father's permission and help convince him to let Zhang Hao skip school. Even she tells him to go home and stop worrying about anything else. At home, he becomes so bored that he has nothing to do. He decides to use the chance to study and practice live streaming. Since he is 18, he thinks he should be able to earn money by playing games instead of working part-time. After all, in his old life, he used to be the king of the game. He enters his favorite game and realizes that although all the characters have changed, the rules are still the same. That will not be a problem for him. Within minutes, he starts scoring quadra-kills and pentakills against other players, proving to himself that he still has his skill. The feeling of strength is not bad. He enjoys moving quickly and playing with precision. When he notices the small icon button in the game, he realizes he has not lost his ability. He wants to keep playing again and again. He spends the entire afternoon playing, and when he finally grows tired, he realizes he is almost prepared. He decides to try starting a live broadcast that night. After dinner, while his mother and father are busy together on the couch, he excuses himself and says he is going to his room. His sister Chun Chun watches him closely. Zhang Hao begins his first live broadcast and admits he feels a little nervous. He enters the summer beach game and notices something odd about the player matched with him. That player keeps following him around, trying to catch him. Then the player asks whether he used swordsman lethal to finish them off. Tired of being chased in the game, Zhang Hao quickly eliminates the character following him. Right after that, he receives a message from the same person asking if he really used swordsman lethal to defeat her. On the other side is a girl. She is a gaming nerd who tries to justify her loss by saying her view was bad. She insists that a player at that level should not be able to beat her unless he is using hacks. She calls herself the master of games and says that if she cannot win, she might as well sell her computer and quit. Other players start investigating Zhang Hao's character, trying to find out who he really is, but because esports does not display gender, no one can tell whether he is a boy or a girl. Still, the girl he defeated refuses to accept cheaters. She says too many people nowadays use fake documents to pretend they are idols just so they can enter the game. The group chat fills with complaints, and Zhang Hao reads all of it. He wonders why everyone is insulting him when he has done nothing wrong. Players begin sending him invitations to join their teams, but Zhang Hao rejects every one of them. He says he only plays solo. The others instantly call him arrogant. They say he is unbearable for a boy, and they all promise to teach him a lesson. They claim that next time he will not dare enter a girl's game while pretending to be a guy. Even the same player he defeated earlier challenges him again. Zhang Hao accepts without hesitation. Using his speed, he defeats her instantly. This time, she realizes she is facing someone far beyond her level. She quickly tells her fans not to attack him, suggesting he is probably just a guy new to the game who does not understand how seriously people treat hacks. Meanwhile, Zhang Hao admits that she may be right and that the other side might actually be skilled, but then he notices something that makes him stop. The small icon at the top of the screen shows that his live stream has suddenly filled with viewers. The chat floods with messages demanding that he show his face. Some even threaten to report him if he refuses, while many say he must be a kid and want proof. Zhang Hao turns on his mic and speaks in his real voice. He clearly says that he is a man and that he is the one playing, but the girls still refuse to believe him. They laugh it off, saying no man could play video games like that. Zhang Hao asks how they even found his stream if he has not used any hacks. He adds that if they doubt him, they can face him directly in the game. Suddenly, the chat shifts. Someone asks him to show his hands on camera, and everyone wants to see what kind of player he is. Zhang Hao watches his viewer count jump to 3.7 million. He realizes the gaming moderators have already placed his stream on the main feed. For the first time, he feels excited, so he turns on the camera and shows his hands, saying there is nothing else to prove. The chat explodes immediately, with viewers spamming hearts and praising how beautiful his hands look. The girl he defeated earlier sighs and admits that if she had known she was playing against someone like him, she would have tried to befriend him instead of challenging him. Comments keep pouring in about his veiny hands, and Zhang Hao cannot understand what people find so attractive. As the second round is about to begin, he closes the chat because the messages are slowing down his game. At the same time, inside a large corporate building, a mysterious girl girl sits before her screen, watching his live stream with sharp interest. She quickly understands that this new streamer is already attracting massive attention, and if the company signs him, he will become a valuable asset and a steady source of income. After streaming for a while, Zhang Hao finally says farewell to everyone. He thanks them, explaining that this was his very first live stream and that he appreciates all their support. But the girls in the stream refuse to let him leave. They beg him to stay longer, saying 2 hours is far from enough. Some even joke that he should ask his mother to check under his bed because they adore him that much. Zhang Hao finds everything too strange, so he immediately shuts down his computer. He decides he will stream again tomorrow at 8 o'clock, probably for 2 hours, so he needs to rest and wake up early. Since it is already past 10, he goes to bed, thinking that tomorrow he will also decide whether it is safe to return to school. The next day, Zhang Hao meets his best friend Yilong at an ice cream shop. He asks whether girls are still following him around school. Yilong says there are fewer than yesterday, but that may be because Zhang Hao never showed up, so some of them got frustrated and left. Even so, a few are still waiting outside, hoping to see him. Zhang Hao hopes they will be gone by the time he returns tomorrow. Yilong then asks what Zhang Hao has been doing recently. Zhang Hao says he wrote several novels and even tried broadcasting. Yilong's eyes widen at once. He nearly shouts, asking when Zhang Hao started streaming and why he never heard about it. He even jokes that since Zhang Hao is good at everything, he must be good at streaming too. Zhang Hao quickly tells him to be quiet before someone hears. He lowers his hat to hide his face and explains that he only started recently and has not signed any contract. At that moment, Zhang Hao receives a message from a famous streaming company. They invite him to contact their administrators and discuss a contract. Yilong notices Zhang Hao's reaction and asks what happened. Zhang Hao explains that the platform wants to sign him because his streams have become popular. Yilong gets excited, saying this is great news and Zhang Hao should sign immediately. He insists that with Zhang Hao's talent and looks, he will definitely succeed and become one of the most famous men in the country. He laughs as he imagines Zhang Hao becoming a celebrity, earning a fortune, and buying anything he wants. To Yilong, that dream already feels like a wild fantasy. Zhang Hao argues that he is still only a student, and if live streaming ever affects his studies, he will quit without hesitation. He also says that if he becomes an internet celebrity, he doubts he will have any privacy. He knows he would be harassed both online and offline, which is the last thing he wants. Yilong tries to persuade him, saying he can simply wear a mask. In his opinion, it is a great way to gain attention, and fans would follow him and send gifts if he sang or danced. But Zhang Hao immediately sets another limit. He says he can stream and entertain people without showing his face, but he refuses to sing and dance just to beg for gifts. For now, Zhang Hao says he has to leave, so the two of them go their separate ways. What they do not realize is that two girls have been watching Zhang Hao from a distance. When they reach an alley, Zhang Hao senses that someone is following them. He suddenly tells Yilong that he needs to stop by the supermarket and that Yilong can go on without him. Yilong suspects nothing, so he leaves Zhang Hao behind. Once Yilong is gone, Zhang Hao scans the empty alley and calmly says there is no point hiding anymore, telling whoever is following him to come out. At that moment, a gangster steps out from the shadows. She grins at him and says she is lucky someone like him wandered into her territory. Calling him a handsome boy, she offers to take care of him. Zhang Hao looks at her coldly and asks who she thinks she is to speak to him that way. The gangster group's second-in-command speaks up, asking how Zhang Hao cannot know sister Lu Xian. She says Lu Xian controls every street in the area. Zhang Hao calmly replies that he knows no Lu Xian who owns the streets, and even if she does, he has no interest in her, so she should stop talking nonsense. The second-in-command steps closer and asks if the kid wants to die, because no one speaks to Lu Xian that way. But before she can continue, Lu Xian herself intervenes. Instead of thanking her follower, she punches the girl in the face and tells her not to be rude to her beautiful little pet. Lu Xian looks at Zhang Hao and says he has plenty of personality, which she likes. She says the internet was right about him being handsome, and she has already decided to make him hers. Lu Xian explains that her people did not mean to offend him and that he may have misunderstood, but the important thing is that she wants him to become her boyfriend. In exchange, she offers him a monthly salary of 10,000 yen. Zhang Hao immediately thinks the amount is too low. At the same time, he knows many men would see being kept by a rich woman as a dream. He admits to himself that Lu Xian is beautiful and strong, with a toned body and even visible abs, but then he asks himself whether being a man means relying on someone else. The idea feels wrong to him, so he refuses her proposal and tells her to leave. When Zhang Hao turns away, Lu Xian calls after him again, saying that these days it is normal for boys to be taken in by older women, and if the first offer is too low, she can increase the amount. She warns him to think carefully before refusing again, because if he says no once more, she will have to use force. Then she pulls out a pocket knife, spins it between her fingers, and says it would be a shame shame to damage such a beautiful face. She holds the knife near him as a threat, the blade only inches from his skin. Zheng Hao does not flinch because he knows kung fu. He quickly grabs her wrist and twists it, making the knife slip from her hand and fall to the ground. Zheng Hao takes a firm stance and realizes he has finally found someone to use for kung fu practice. Zheng Hao drives his elbow into Lu Xian's chest, sending her staggering back as she clutches herself. She curses under her breath, but before she can recover, kick flies toward his face. Zheng Hao dodges just in time and quickly moves across the floor. He snatches the knife from the ground and turns back, now pointing the blade at the gangsters. He warns them to leave him alone. One of Lu Xian's subordinates steps forward, saying the kid really wants a fight, but Lu Xian raises her hand and orders them all to stay back. She says she wants to tame this wild cat herself. Rolling up her sleeve, she walks toward him with a confident smile. Zheng Hao controls his breathing and thinks that women in this world have a natural advantage, so if he wants to win, he needs another method. He grips the knife and swings it repeatedly, forcing Lu Xian to retreat. With his free hand, he takes out his phone and calls the police. He warns her that if she does not stop, he will give them her name. Lu Xian freezes, realizing Zheng Hao is not only skilled but also smart. She lowers her guard and steps back, choosing to let it go. Her followers stare at her in shock, unable to believe their fierce leader is allowing the boy to leave. But Lu Xian smirks and tells them that patience is sometimes necessary, especially with handsome ones. She asks Zheng Hao for his name. He introduces himself, then quickly reminds her to keep her distance because the call is still connected. Lu Xian bites her lip and says she will remember him, her gaze lingering on him with desire. While Zheng Hao is fighting, one of Lu Xian's followers secretly snaps a photo of him in action and posts it online. The image starts spreading rapidly. Far away, inside a powerful corporation, a woman sits at the head of the conference table. Her name is Ms. Wei, and her presence makes the entire room tense. The employees below her present their report, saying they have found a promising candidate. The president listens closely, then orders them to sign him immediately, certain that the boy will become a major success. Ms. Wei sits in her office with a cigarette in hand, wondering why recruitment has fallen to her. She thinks that finding new talent sounds more like a headhunter's job than hers. Still, she wonders why she should care so much in the first place. Her second-in-command agrees, but reminds her that this is a direct order from the president. The president wants to introduce the new boy and even requested to speak with him personally. Ms. Wei frowns and asks whether her mother ever grows tired of chasing new faces. She mutters that perhaps her mother truly wants to find herself a younger man to act as a father. Then, she asks to see the pictures. The assistant hands them over, and naturally, they are photos of Zheng Hao fighting. Ms. Wei studies them carefully. She notes that he still looks like a high school student, but his aura and personality are striking. She thinks that if they shape him properly, he could become a huge success for the company. She orders her assistant to investigate Zheng Hao and bring her a complete report that afternoon. After they leave, Ms. Wei walks to the window and looks over the city below. For a moment, she wonders about the boy who managed to catch her attention. That boy is, of course, Zheng Hao. Meanwhile, in the schoolyard, Zheng Hao is playing basketball. Ilong stands nearby, clearly irritated. When Zheng Hao sneezes, Ilong tells him that he should not play if he has a cold. He says Zheng Hao should just cheer from the stands, since basketball is a sport for girls anyway. Zheng Hao shakes his head and says he is not sick. It was only a sneeze, and basketball is not just for girls. He takes the ball and makes a clean shot straight into the hoop. As he jumps, part of his shirt lifts, and a girl watching from afar holds her breath. To her, it feels as if she has just witnessed something beautiful. Zheng Hao lands and proves his point, showing that boys can also shine in basketball. Ilong sighs, because he is not the only one cheering. A whole crowd of girls starts shouting Zheng Hao's name, their voices rising for the best player on the court. Later, Ilong talks with Yuehua. He says it feels strange that Zheng Hao became famous almost overnight. Yuehua agrees that it is unusual, but adds that Zheng Hao's happiness matters most. Ilong nods, admitting that Zheng Hao is so cool even Qin Qin, the shyest girl in school, has fallen for him. Nearby, Feng sits with his follower and sneers that Zheng Hao only enjoys drawing attention from girls. He wonders why no one sees his real nature. Feng claims Zheng Hao is just an arrogant boy pretending to be innocent. His follower says the girls are blinded by his face